Your challenge this week is inspired by Cats in Food. On their Instagram page, you can see a lot of examples where they have creatively kind of hidden, or sometimes they're pretty obvious, but added cats to food. So there's some really interesting ones. You're going to have a chance to do this as well. A process video from the artist, you can see they have a gray cat, but they are hiding them in blueberries. So if you get something that you want to do multiples, if you get one where you want it, use Free Transform Control-T to resize and rotate. Clean it up. They're using an eraser here to make, you can duplicate that layer without having to start over. You can just copy it and adjust it so that way you have it in multiple locations. In order to duplicate a layer, you can right-click on that layer and then select Duplicate. Or if you hold down the Alt key, you can click and just sort of drag it and drop a copy off to the side, and then you can move it around. They're zooming in and out in order to see better. If you hold down Control and the plus or minus sign, that's your shortcut for zooming in and out without having to select the magnifying glass tool. Now it's time to get an idea for your project. I downloaded some food pictures and some cat pictures and just went to File Open to open both of those up inside Photoshop. I found that it is usually easier to use more of a solid colored cat than one with a lot of patterns, but that could vary depending on what food you choose. So now I'm working on selecting the face, the head of my cat. So there are different selection tools for this. You can use the quick selection tool. That's my favorite way to do it. And then if you just do copy, the shortcut is Control-C. And then switch back to your food picture, you can do Edit Paste, or the shortcut is Control-V. Learning those shortcuts will save you a lot of time. So now I'm going to Free Transform, the shortcut is Control-T, to change the size and location of the cat's head. I was trying to decide which raspberry I wanted to turn into the cat, so feel free to try different arrangements until you figure out how you really want to do it. Now I'm going to turn the transparency down, or the opacity down, so that I can see better how I have it lined up. This lets the background show through. Once again, the magnifying glass, or you can do Control plus or Control minus, although using the actual tool allows you to kind of pinpoint where you want it to go. Control-T to resize it more. The size is pretty close now. I am testing different rotations to figure out what angle I like the best. And then when you have it where you want it, you can either click the check mark button or just go ahead and select the next tool you want to use, and that will apply your transformation. Okay, I turned the opacity back up to 100. Now I'm going to go to Image Adjustments, Hue and Saturation. The shortcut for that is Control-U, and I can start to change the color of my cat. Hue is the kind of common name of a color. So that changes depending on which way you drag it. Saturation is how intense your color is, and then lightness, it's either light or dark depending on how you move it. I'm switching to my eraser tool, and I'm going to turn the hardness down. You don't want it at 100% because it will make a very crisp edge, and I want it to kind of fade. So I turn the hardness down. You can also adjust the size depending on the size of the photo layer you're working on. So I'm just kind of softening up the edges a bit so that way it will start to blend in more instead of looking like it's just pasted on top. Next, I decided to try turning the opacity down a little bit to let some of the texture show through, and I can decide later if that's how I want to keep it. I'm going to use Control minus to zoom back out and look at the whole thing. I decided to add the cat in another raspberry and messed up the video, but there you go. Next, I'm going to show you another example. I'm holding Shift to open both of these photos at the same time. This time I thought carefully about the color of the cat I wanted to start with. Since I am going to put it on ice cream, I wanted to start with a light colored cat. So I dragged and dropped my whole cat over, and I'm going to show you how to do this with a layer mask this time. So the button at the bottom, it's like a white rectangle with a circle in the middle. I clicked that, and now I'm going to select my brush tool and change my paintbrush to black. So on a layer mask, it doesn't actually get rid of what's there, it's just masking or covering up part of it. So anything you paint black is going to be hidden. It's not going to be visible. If you paint anything white, it will show through. On mine, it defaulted to have white, but that's the basics of it. Now I'm doing Control T to resize. You can see it resized the mask as well, so you don't have to worry about that as much. The benefit of using a mask is that if I changed my mind and wanted to have more of the cat show through than just the head later, I wouldn't have to go back and start over. I could just paint more white on that spot and it would show through. This time I'm going to show you how to use color balance to adjust the colors instead of just hue and saturation. This will bring up and let you adjust the amount of yellow and blue, magenta and green, red and cyan. So since I wanted it to be a warmer color, and that's getting pretty close, now I'm going to go back and do hue and saturation, and I can tweak it just a little bit. So it's good to use a combination of tools in order to get it exactly where you want it. I like that it shows the preview so you can see what's happening before you actually apply it. Now I'm going to get back on my layer mask. You have to make sure the brackets are selected, and I have a gray paint color. So if black blocks it all, white lets it all show through, gray will let it partially show through. So this is a way that you can sort of fade your edges. Make sure that you export or save as a JPEG and turn it into Google Classroom when you are finished.